Back in 2017, I began a full restoration of my 96 Bayliner by tearing it apart all the way down to the hull. From there, I began the rebuilding process, which included learning to fiberglass, rebuilding an engine and outdrive, learning to fare and paint, and even upholstery. Now, I've bought a 28-foot cabin cruiser, and I'm starting all over. Welcome, my name's Jared. Now get ready, because it's going to be a ship show. Alright, so one more thing I'd like to do in here before I paint the bilge is to go through and basically fill all of the existing screw holes. I know I'm going to be putting new ones in, but at least I'll know that when I replace those screws I can put in some 5200 or anything like that to help seal the wood in the screw holes. But I'd rather start from scratch. One, because there's a bunch of existing holes for stuff that's not in here anymore, like the gray water tank and things like that, so those holes are no longer needed, so I'd rather just completely seal those up and paint them and just have them go away. So what I came up with a process for this is I'm going to use some thickened epoxy to fill the holes, but I don't want to just put it right into the existing holes because obviously they're dirty. There could be existing sealant in there, things that wouldn't allow the epoxy to bond really well. So I plan on going through and drilling out all those screw holes to a little bit bigger than the screw itself, so I'm not removing too much material but exposing fresh wood. But the downside of that is that leaves you with a basically smooth walled hole. And epoxy has really good adhesive properties, but to make myself feel a little bit better, what I came up with, which I think will work out pretty good, is I am taking a tap. I think this is a 1024 tap. It doesn't really matter. I just found one that was just slightly larger than the drill I'm using. So after I drill all these holes, I'm going to go through with the tap and basically tap the holes. So it's going to give me a spiral kind of groove the entire way around that hole. So that'll give something really good for the epoxy to kind of flow around and bond to. So I think that's going to work out really well. I'm just going to get started here and start drilling. I mean, there's got to be over 100 holes in here. Here we go. One thing I forgot to mention is part of this process, yeah, I'm drilling out the holes, but one thing I'm looking at is the wood chips that are coming out of the holes. So everything in the floor so far is good. Up high in the stringers seems good. I do have some questionable ones down on these stringers that the engine mounts are mounted to, so I'll pay a little bit closer attention when I get down there. Okay, so with all those holes drilled out and tapped, the next step is going to be to fill them with thickened epoxy. So that is what I have right here. I already dispensed like the first couple inches to make sure it's fully mixed and ready to go. Let's get these holes filled. Alright guys, welcome back to episode 412 of More Time in the Bilge, I guess. Anyway, I got the epoxy in the screw holes, sanded down, everything ready to go. I'm going to stop putting this off any longer and get ready to paint here. So first steps are going to be to go through, give everything a good wipe down, some cleaner. I'm using the Total Boat de-waxer surface prep, and I'm going to go around and get all the surfaces that I'm going to be painting wiped down. And I think I mentioned this in the previous video, but how I'm going to have to go about doing this is kind of in two stages. There's really no easy way for me to paint sort of the side walls and these side floors in the same step, because this side's not too bad, but what's going on the other side behind the camera is there's some wiring and some plumbing that I did not remove and would be a giant pain in the butt to remove. So what I did is I kind of pulled them away from the sidewall so I can paint the sidewall, and then once that's dry I can then fasten that stuff back to the side so then I can have access to paint the floor. If I do both at the same time, there's nowhere to put that stuff that it won't be sitting in wet paint. So it's going to have to be, unfortunately, a two-stage approach, and actually three-stage, because I'm going to have to do these, let them cure before I can do the actual like bilge under the motor, because obviously I can't stand in here and paint, so I'm going to need somewhere to be in order to paint under here. Anyway, enough yammering on. Let's get get this thing cleaned out. We are ready for the first coat of paint. Let's go ahead and get things ready here. Got my supplies, pan, roller, disposable brush, stir stick, painter's tape, which I'll show you. I'm not taping anything off. I'm just gonna show you what that's for. So let's get this can of Total Bilge popped open. Let's get this stirred up good. So this is an epoxy paint, but it's a 1-part epoxy, so there's no mixing here going in, just giving it a good stir beforehand. So this doesn't really matter for bilge paint because we're not going for fancy finish here, but I am still going to try and break off any loose stuff on this roller. It actually came off with quite a bit, so I'm going to do that again. That's better, still a little bit, so one more. Yeah, pretty much nothing that time. And dump some in. Let's go do it. All right, we got the sides painted. Took 3 coats. Pain in the butt, you gotta sand in between each one. But anyway, it is what it is. The sides are done, and at this point, I need to get the wiring and the plumbing kind of up off of this flat area so I can start getting other things installed. So I can paint this and then get other things installed. Before I can do that, I think I mentioned previously that I plan on removing all of the wiring split loom back here. It's nice in keeping the wires together, but it's not good for making any changes. So for future access to the wiring bundle, making those changes, especially because the house battery used to live back here, it's going to be moving over behind kind of where the camera is. All of the DC power takeoff for the circuit breaker and everything are all up in here, so I need to get that all out of the harness and moved over that way. So I need to undo the loom anyway. So I'm going to be going back in with this stuff, which is a open cable raceway. It has all these little slots in the side for cable to basically exit through at any point. Then you can easily just pop off this cap, add, move whatever wires in the future. So I'm gonna go with that plan moving forward. At this point, I need to go ahead and get it installed. I'm gonna be going on with some stainless screws and some stainless fender washers just to help kind of keep these nice and rigid to the transom. When I say the transom, this is actually not the transom itself. This is basically just a bulkhead. This section here that's curved is the transom, so I'm not going anywhere near that. It's all going to go across up above that. So, all right, it's enough talking. Let me get this thing installed. Okay, now with all the cable raceway installed, it's a matter of going through, tucking all these wires in, figuring out where everything goes, getting the old loom off, zip tying up any wires that are in use, tracing them. This is not going to be a small amount of work, but needs to be done. Let's get after it. Alright guys, well, you've seen the proof. The bilge is painted. Now I know that bottom of the bilge isn't painted. The rest of the engine compartment is. So the reason I'm going to leave the bottom gray for now is twofold. One, I'm going to be in and out of here a lot, starting to put things back in. And I like the idea of having a place I can stand, don't have to worry about how clean my feet are and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna leave this till the last possible minute to paint. And if you guys recall, when I drilled some of the holes in these engine stringers, I got some questionable wood chips. I'm not gonna say they were total like mush, but they're definitely dark. So I'm going to ponder on this, maybe drill some more exploratory holes, try and figure out what's going on with these engine stringers and figure out what I'm gonna do from there. So again, the absolute bottom part of the bilge is going to remain gray for a little while. You may have also noticed in that last little clip that I have some hoses installed. So I've already started on my next video, which is going to be installing these hoses, getting things back in the bilge, including the wastewater tank, water heater, eventually the generator back in, and a little bit more wiring that needs to be dealt with. So it's happening. Things are going back in. I think it's going to wrap it up for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you guys sticking around. Thank you especially to those that have subscribed and liked these videos and left comments down below. So again, if you haven't, remember to do those things. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Bye.